Welcome to Tale Spire, where every tale finds its voice. Are you new here? Subscribe and climb the spire with us. Let's begin. The palace gates slammed open so hard the guards nearly drew their swords. Rain hammered the marble courtyard as a lone figure walked in, soaked, barefoot, and bleeding from a cut above his brow. Every soldier froze. It was him. The Crown Prince. But he didn't arrive like a royal returning home. He arrived like someone who had walked out of a grave. Behind him, thunder cracked across the sky. In front of him, dozens of guards formed a line, shaking not from the storm, but from disbelief. A captain stepped forward. "Your Highness, where have you been?" The prince didn't answer immediately. His eyes scanned the palace like he was seeing it for the first time, or the last. Then he spoke softly, almost too calm. "You still stand here asking questions, instead of preparing for what's coming." The gates behind him slowly closed on their own, as if the palace itself was swallowing him back. Inside the throne hall, the king had already been alerted. Ministers gathered quickly, whispers cutting through the air like knives. "He's alive. No one survives out there for 100 days. He must be an imposter." The king rose from his throne as the prince entered. Silence fell instantly. The father stared at the son like a stranger. "Speak," the king said sharply. "Where have you been for 100 days?" The prince's expression didn't change. "You should be asking what I saw instead." A tense silence followed. One minister stepped forward. "Your Majesty, this man could be." Before he finished, the prince turned his head slowly. "I remember you," he said coldly. "You smiled the day I disappeared." The minister froze. The queen gasped softly. "What is he saying?" The king slammed his staff. "Enough. Explain yourself." For a moment, the prince said nothing. Then his voice lowered. "I didn't disappear by accident." The room went still. "There was a plan," he continued. "And it started inside this palace." Whispers erupted instantly. The king's eyes darkened. "That is a dangerous accusation." The prince stepped closer. Rainwater dripped from his clothes onto the polished floor. "I was attacked the night before the royal summit. I saw faces I trusted, watching it happen." A guard moved forward. "Your Majesty, this could be a psychological." "Silence," the prince snapped, suddenly louder than anyone had ever heard him speak before. The entire hall froze again. Then, just as quickly, he lowered his voice. "I didn't come back to ask for forgiveness. I came back because I remember everything now." The king's grip tightened on his staff. "Everything?" The prince nodded once. And for the first time, emotion flickered in his eyes. The 100 days didn't feel like 100 days. His voice cracked slightly. It felt like a lifetime buried inside someone else's world. 100 days earlier. The night had started with celebration. The palace was glowing with lanterns as preparations for the royal unity ceremony reached its peak. The crown prince walked through the hall smiling, greeting servants, unaware that every step he took was being watched. Two ministers stood in a shadowed corridor. "He knows too much," one whispered. The other nodded. "Tonight, it ends." Back in his chamber, the prince paused at his desk. A sealed document had been left there. No signature. No seal. Just a warning. "Stop digging, or you won't survive the summit." He frowned. "Loyalty threats now," he muttered. But before he could call a guard, footsteps echoed outside. Not one set. Many. The door burst open. Back in the present. The prince suddenly clenched his jaw in the throne hall. The memory hit him like a blade. He took a step back. The queen stood. "What is it? What are you seeing?" But he didn't answer. His breathing grew heavier. Then he whispered, almost to himself. "They didn't just want me gone." The king stepped forward. "Who?" The prince's eyes darkened. "They wanted to erase me. 100 days earlier." He woke up in darkness. Not the darkness of a room. The darkness of earth. Something shifted above him. Dirt fell into his face. He gasped violently, pushing upward until his hands broke through soil. Cold air hit him. Rain fell. He dragged himself out of what looked like a shallow grave, coughing violently, disoriented. He didn't know where he was. He didn't know how he got there. All he knew was pain. A voice suddenly screamed nearby. "He's alive!" Footsteps ran toward him. A lantern light flickered. A young girl stood over him, terrified but cautious. "Don't move," she shouted. "Who are you?" The prince tried to speak, but nothing came out. His throat burned. She slowly stepped closer, holding a wooden stick. "You're not from around here, are you?" He tried to respond again, but collapsed. Back in the palace hall. The prince staggered slightly as the memory flashed through him. A minister whispered urgently. "He's unstable. This is dangerous." But the prince raised a hand. "Don't interrupt." His voice was sharper now. "I remember waking up buried. I remember not knowing my name. I remember being told I was nothing." The hall gasped. The king stepped forward slowly. "You are the crown prince of this kingdom." The prince looked at him. "And yet," he said quietly, "no one came for me." Silence. That silence was louder than any scream. 100 days earlier. The girl had dragged him into her small hut. "You're going to die if you stay outside," she said firmly. He barely understood her. "Who am I?" he finally forced out. She frowned. "You don't remember anything?" He shook his head. She sighed. "Then until you do, you're just someone I saved." She handed him water. "You can work here. You'll earn your keep." The prince stared at her in disbelief. "You want me to work, for you?" She rolled her eyes. "Unless you prefer dying in the rain." That was the first time in his life someone had spoken to him without fear or respect. Just honesty. And it confused him more than anything else. Back in the palace. The prince's voice softened. 4 days. I was nothing. A minister scoffed. "This is absurd." The prince snapped his gaze toward him. "I carried stones. I fetched water. I was insulted by men who didn't even know my name." His voice grew heavier. "And for the first time, I understood something this palace never taught me." He paused. "Pain makes truth louder." The queen covered her mouth. The king's expression hardened. "Continue." The prince stepped forward slowly. "So I want to ask again," he said quietly. His eyes scanned every face in the room. "Who ordered my disappearance?" No one spoke. But in the silence, something shifted. Fear. And recognition. The 100 days were no longer a mystery. They were a warning. And the crown prince had come back, not empty, but changed. The silence in the throne hall stretched too long. Too heavy. No one dared move. Then the king spoke again, slower this time. "You are accusing my court of treason without proof." The prince didn't blink. "I didn't come back with proof." He took another step forward. "I came back as the proof." A ripple of unease moved through the ministers. One of them shifted backward instinctively, like distance could protect him from memory. The prince's eyes narrowed slightly. "I started remembering names," he said. "Places. Conversations I was never supposed to survive remembering." A guard tightened his grip on his spear. The queen's voice broke slightly. "What happened to you out there?" For the first time, something human flickered in his expression. Not weakness. Not fear. Pain. "I died," he said simply. The hall froze. Then he corrected himself. "Not once. Many times." A minister scoffed nervously. "This is madness." The prince turned sharply. "You want me to stop speaking because it makes you uncomfortable?" The minister went silent immediately. The prince exhaled slowly, then continued. 100 days ago, I was buried alive. Gasps erupted again. I don't know how I survived the first night, he said. But I know who put me there. The king's expression tightened. Say it. The prince hesitated for the first time. Then he said it. Someone inside this palace wanted the throne to themselves. The room erupted instantly. That's impossible. Blasphemy. He's delirious. But the prince raised his voice again, cutting through them like a blade. I remember the corridor. Silence returned instantly. I remember the footsteps behind me. I remember the voice that called me Your Highness, right before I was struck. The king stepped forward again, voice colder now. You are naming traitors without evidence. The prince met his gaze. I am the evidence you failed to protect. That hit harder than anything else. Even the king faltered slightly. For a brief moment, something passed between father and son, something broken, unspoken. Then it was gone. 100 days earlier. The girl had called him Lost Prince as a joke at first. You walk like someone important, she had said once while watching him carry firewood. He had frowned. I don't feel important. She laughed. Good. That means you'll survive here. Days passed. Then weeks. The prince learned how to cook over fire. How to sell small goods in the market. How to stay quiet when people mocked him. But something inside him refused to disappear completely. He noticed things. Patterns. Men watching the village from far away. Strange travelers asking questions about a wounded man who fell from the capital road. One night, he asked the girl, Do people ever come looking for me? She shrugged. No one comes here unless they want something. That answer stayed with him longer than it should have. Then came the night everything changed. Back in the palace. The prince's voice dropped lower. I stopped being safe the moment I started remembering. He paused. And when I remembered my name, they started hunting me again. A minister whispered, This is getting worse. The prince turned to him immediately. You think I'm imagining it? The minister froze. The prince stepped closer, slowly. Let me ask you something. Silence. Where were you the night I disappeared? The minister swallowed hard. I was, in the western wing. The prince cut him off. Wrong. The minister blinked. I saw you, the prince said quietly. You were in the inner corridor. Speaking to someone you weren't supposed to meet. The minister's face went pale instantly. The queen gasped. What are you saying? The prince didn't break eye contact. I saw everything. The king's voice dropped dangerously. Enough. But the prince wasn't stopping now. I didn't just survive outside this palace, he said. His voice sharpened. I survived inside your secrets. 100 days earlier. The girl had been taken. It happened fast. Too fast. Men in dark cloaks entered the village at dawn. No warning. No mercy. The prince had woken up to screams. He ran outside barefoot. What are you doing? He shouted. One of the men turned to him. Step away. Why are you taking her? The prince demanded. The man looked at him carefully. Then said something that made the prince's blood turn cold. He's the one. Everything stopped. The men turned toward him fully now. The girl struggled. Run, she screamed. But it was too late. The prince moved instinctively, grabbing a wooden tool nearby and swinging it. The first man fell. The second struck him hard across the face. Pain exploded through his skull. He fell. And as he hit the ground, one of the cloaked men knelt beside him. You don't belong here, the man whispered. Then he said something worse. You were never meant to wake up. That was when the prince realized. This wasn't random. This was planned. For him. Back in the throne hall. The prince stood very still now. The silence felt different. He wasn't guessing anymore. He was remembering. I understand now, he said quietly. The king narrowed his eyes. Understand what? The prince turned slowly. Why I was buried. A heavy pause. Because I wasn't supposed to survive long enough to remember. The queen's voice trembled. Remember what? The prince looked at her. Then at the entire court. I remember the summit night. Instant silence. The ministers looked at each other nervously. I remember the conversation I overheard before I was taken, he said. His voice hardened. I remember the names. The king stepped forward. What names? The prince hesitated. Then spoke. Those who signed my death before I was even gone. A wave of shock hit the hall. One minister dropped his scroll. Another stepped backward instinctively. The prince saw it. And he smiled faintly. Not happily. Sadly. So it's true, he said. You all know. The king's voice turned sharp. Enough. But the prince raised his hand again. No. His voice echoed through the hall. Now you listen. And for the first time since his return. No one interrupted him. The prince stood in the center of the throne hall like a man who no longer belonged to fear. No one spoke. Even the guards felt it now, that strange pressure in the air, like truth was finally pressing against the walls. The king's voice broke the silence, but it wasn't as strong as before. If you truly remember everything, then speak it clearly. The prince nodded once. I will. He turned slowly, scanning every face in the hall. But understand this first, he said. What I am about to say will not just expose traitors. A pause. It will collapse the foundation of this kingdom. The queen's hand tightened around her robe. Son, please. He looked at her, and for a brief moment, something softer appeared. I didn't want this either, he said quietly. Then it was gone. I only wanted to live. 100 days earlier. The prince had finally learned how to smile again. Not the royal smile he used in court. A real one. The girl had noticed it one afternoon while they sat by a small fire. You're different now, she said. He looked at her. Is that good or bad? She shrugged. Depends who you were before. That question stayed longer than it should have. Who was he before? He tried to remember. But every time he did, pain followed. Not physical. Something deeper. Like a locked door inside his mind refusing to open fully. Until the night it cracked. He had been walking back from the market when a traveler stopped him. The man looked at him too long. Then whispered, "You shouldn't be alive." The prince froze. What did you say? But the man had already walked away. That night, he couldn't sleep. And for the first time, he saw a face in his dreams. His own face. Wearing a crown. Screaming. Back in the palace. The prince's voice grew sharper. I wasn't taken randomly. He stepped forward. I was chosen. A minister shouted, "This is absurd, chosen by who?" The prince turned instantly. You want the name? Silence hit the hall again. Even the king didn't interrupt. The prince inhaled slowly. Then said it. My uncle. Gasps exploded instantly. The queen staggered slightly. No. The king's face hardened dangerously. That is a serious accusation. The prince didn't blink. He was there the night I disappeared. A long pause. He was the one who spoke to the men in cloaks. The hall erupted again in chaos. That's impossible. He is family. You have no proof. But the prince raised his voice above them all. I was there. Silence. I saw him. The king's grip tightened on his staff. You expect me to believe my own brother betrayed my son? The prince nodded. Yes. The word landed like a stone. Heavy. Final. 100 days earlier. The prince had found something hidden in the girl's home. A small pouch. Inside it, a royal seal. His seal. He had stared at it for a long time. "What is this?" he asked her. She looked nervous. "I don't know. I found it near the road before I met you." But he knew. It wasn't found. It was placed. And suddenly, everything shifted. The kindness around him. The coincidence of his survival. The strange men asking questions. None of it was random. He stood up slowly. "I need to leave," he said. The girl grabbed his arm. "Leave? Where?" He looked at her. "I think I know who I am now." Her voice shook slightly. "And who are you?" He hesitated. Then said softly, "I think I'm someone they tried to erase." Back in the throne hall. The prince's voice lowered. "They didn't just want me gone." He took another step forward. "They wanted my existence erased from history." A minister whispered, "Why would anyone do that?" The prince turned toward him slowly. "Because I wasn't supposed to inherit the throne." Silence. "I wasn't the original plan." The king frowned. "What are you saying?" The prince looked at him directly. "I am not the first crown prince chosen." That hit differently. Confusion spread across the hall. The king's voice hardened. "Explain." The prince exhaled slowly. "There was someone before me." A pause. "Someone who disappeared, before I was even old enough to understand politics." The queen stepped forward. "That was a tragedy, a sickness." The prince cut her off. "No." His voice sharpened. "It was removed." The hall went completely still. Even the guards stopped breathing. The king's eyes darkened. "You are saying, my first heir was taken from me deliberately?" The prince nodded. "And I was next." 100 days earlier. The girl had been captured again. This time, the prince didn't hesitate. He followed. He moved through the forest fast, ignoring pain, ignoring fear, ignoring everything except the voice in his head telling him he couldn't lose her. He reached an abandoned structure. Old stone. Broken symbols. And inside. She was tied. But she wasn't alone. The cloaked men were there again. Waiting. One of them spoke. "You've been difficult to kill." The prince stepped forward slowly. "Who are you?" The man tilted his head. "People who fix problems." The prince's voice hardened. "I'm not a problem." The man laughed quietly. "You were never supposed to become yourself." Then he paused. "And yet, here you are." The girl screamed. "Run!" But the prince didn't. Something inside him snapped. Not rage. Clarity. "I understand now," he said quietly. The cloaked man raised an eyebrow. "Do you?" The prince nodded. "You're not just trying to kill me." A pause. "You're trying to control the throne." Silence. That answer changed everything. The cloaked man stepped forward slightly. "Smart." That was all he said. Then chaos exploded. Back in the palace. The prince looked at the entire court now. And for the first time since his return, his voice wasn't emotional. It was final. "Everything I've told you is only part of it." A ripple of fear moved through the hall. The king stepped forward. "What else is there?" The prince looked directly at him. "Whoever buried me alive." A pause. "Didn't act alone." Silence fell so heavy it felt physical. The queen whispered, "What are you saying?" The prince's eyes darkened. "I'm saying this palace is still compromised." A long pause. Then the final blow. "And whoever ordered my death." He looked around slowly. "Is still here." The hall erupted instantly into panic. But the prince didn't move. He just stood there. Watching. Waiting. Because now, after 100 days of being buried, forgotten, and rewritten, he wasn't just the crown prince anymore. He was the beginning of something the kingdom was not ready to survive. And somewhere deep inside the palace walls, someone who had been silent for too long finally moved. The story wasn't over. It had just begun. And if you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment what you think really happened to the crown prince, because the truth may be darker than anyone in the kingdom is ready to accept.